What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the latest movie in the Scream franchise, Scream 7. Now, this is a movie that unfortunately over the last few years has had a lot of controversy around it. They fired Melissa Barrera after she made some comments online. Jenna Ortega left as well for scheduling conflict, but pretty certain it's because they fired Melissa Barrera. They had a director lined up for this. He left the project as well, so it was just kind of all over the place for a while, but the studio decided to bring back Kevin Williamson, the original writer of the original Scream. He's coming back. He's going to direct the movie. Awesome. They convinced Neve Campbell to come back after all the controversy with Part 6, with them not paying her enough money. She's coming back as well. You even get a couple of people from Parts 5 and 6 that were pretty integral characters in Jasmine Savoy Brown and Mason Gooding. Their characters are back, as well as Courtney Cox. So now we're getting the makings of what could be a possible good Scream 7. Then they announce, hey, not only are we bringing all them back, we're bringing back some characters in the series that are dead. Matthew Lillard's coming back. David Arquette's coming back. Dave Foley's coming back. And it's like, whoa, what exactly is going to happen with this movie? Add in a cast of, a whole crop of new characters. And this movie is quite a dud, I gotta say. This is kind of the first time in the series that I genuinely didn't really care for a movie. Now, with that being said, Scream 3 I've always kind of given a lot of hate to. It's been my least favorite in the series. It just doesn't do certain things that I would like it to do, and vice versa. However, after seeing Part 7, I got to give Scream 3 a little bit more props, because I think it's actually better than this. And that's just how bad Scream 7 is. Now, it's not the worst movie I've ever seen. It's not the worst horror movie I've ever seen. But it feels like after all the controversy that was surrounding the production and everything, they were definitely building something with 5 and 6. You had the Carpenter sisters with Jenna Ortega and Melissa Barrera, and they were building up something, and then you had Jasmine Savoy Brown, Mason Gooding. You had the core 4, and you were carrying them over from 5 into 6, and then it looked like they were all going to go from 6 to 7. And then, unfortunately, 2 of them leave the project, and it's like, what do you do now? We got to go back to the roots. We bring in Neve Campbell, but that just doesn't feel like enough, unfortunately, with this movie. And there's a lot of problems with this movie overall, and essentially it all comes from the setup. I mean, this is set up kind of like any other Scream movie, but Neve Campbell, her character Sydney, she moves her and her family to a small town where she can kind of get away from Woodsboro and all the craziness and the madness from the previous Scream movies. She lives there with her husband, played by Joel McHale. She has a daughter played by Isabel May. And, things seem to be good. She's got some friends that are neighbors. She owns a coffee shop. And, things seem pretty cool. It's a quaint little town and whatnot. But, of course, Ghostface comes back in some fashion. Now, I won't really spoil anything here, because a lot of the stuff surrounding Ghostface in this movie definitely is somewhat interesting for a little bit. And then what they eventually do with it is absolutely stupid. One of the biggest mistakes they've ever made in this series is once they reveal everything. The reveal in this movie is by far the worst. Not just the Ghostface reveal itself, but just the way the storyline eventually meets its end is just absolutely terrible. And that's one of many problems with this movie. Another big problem with this movie is, who cares? Everything in this movie is so kind of boring. Like, it's really boring for a Scream movie. And there's just not enough going on here to really pull you in, to really make you feel for the characters. Like I said, it's great to see Neve Campbell back. I love Sidney Prescott. It's even nice to see Courtney Cox back, even though in this movie she is really not doing her best. And everyone else here is just kind of there. None of the new characters make any kind of impact. I was excited to see Joel McHale in this. I thought I might get a little bit of some comedy here and there, because he's generally funny in most things. But he's just Sydney's husband. Like, that's it. He's a police officer. Great. That's cool. But he does nothing in this movie. And all of the new crop of kids that are friends with Sydney's daughter they do absolutely nothing. You got the boyfriend that, oh, he might be the killer. She's got two, friends. They're basically nothing. There's another guy that's kind of like a Randy that might be, a red herring kind of thing. And then he's got a mom who's kind of a little kooky, but she's, the neighbor she's a neighbor to Sydney and the family, and she's kind of friends with Sydney. And it's like, what's going on there? But these people just, there's nothing interesting in this movie. And it's just like, how do you do that? If you're going to introduce new characters and put them into this world, you got to make them interesting enough to pull you in when, a lot of them eventually meet their demise. You feel a little something. But in this case, people start meeting their end, and it's like, all right, let's move on to the next person, because honestly, I did not care about that person. And that's just kind of this movie in a nutshell, unfortunately. It's nice to see Jasmine Savoy Brown and Mason Gooding coming back as the twins. They add a little something once they finally hit the scene. It takes a little while for them to get there, but once they're there, they add a little bit of comic relief, but they kind of downplay everything. This movie doesn't even really feel like a Scream movie. They kind of get away from all the rules and poking fun at other horror movies and, just the horror genre in general. This movie spends more of its time kind of poking fun more at AI, which I know is a big thing now. It's more prevalent in movies and in the entertainment field and everything like that. But the way they go about it just doesn't feel earned, and it doesn't feel like any of the other movies in this series where they're actually pointing out, and deconstructing everything in the horror genre. This is just like, hey, AI kind of sucks. Let's, not do it. Cool. If there is anything positive to say about this movie, it's the kills are somewhat decent. This is a very gory movie, definitely one of the goriest in the series by far. It might actually be the goriest up to this point. There's some, people getting sliced up, obviously, but you got fucking intestines falling out of people, and it's just like, some of it feels like a little over the top for the most part, but it's there. And like I said, the kills themselves, some of them are a little creative. It's not just, oh, this person got stabbed. There's a couple that are like, oh, never seen that before, but it still leaves a lot, to the imagination. There definitely could have been more just in total with this movie, and it would have been great to really enjoy this like I did. I actually really like 5 and 6. I know there's a lot of some people really like those, some people don't, but I really enjoyed 5 and 6, and they've been honestly my favorites since the original movie. And I kind of like the trajectory we were seeing with those characters going from 5 to 6. So for all that to completely stop here, it just feels like because of that controversy, they just didn't know what to do moving forward. And unfortunately, the movie falters because of that. So I can't really recommend this much. I mean, if you are a big fan of the Scream series, you might get a little bit out of this. But overall, it just doesn't really feel much like a Scream movie. It feels like what the Scream series has been poking fun at for 30 years now. The series has now officially become what it was making fun of. And that's not a good sign in your 7th movie, because obviously this movie's making a lot of money, and there's probably inevitably going to be an 8th movie. Where do you go from here? Because now you're just in generic territory where who cares what happens next. So you got to do something to top this, because otherwise people are going to stop coming to see the movies. Overall, I would give Scream 7 a C-. It just didn't really do enough for me to really recommend. It's got some okay kills. Some are pretty good. The effects work is actually pretty solid. It's nice to see some of the, returning characters come back, but all the new characters are terrible. And again, one of the worst Ghostface reveals. The worst Ghostface reveal. My God, it is that bad. And the motive behind it is even worse. It is the worst motive I've ever seen for any of these final reveals. So that's about it from me, guys. If you had the chance to see Scream 7, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more reviews, rankings, all kinds of good stuff. I actually did a full review of every single Scream movie in the franchise a couple years ago when Scream 6 came out. So if you'd like to see those, definitely check out the channel and watch my reviews of all 6 of the other movies in the franchise, as well as I did a ranking of all 6 of those, so now I'll have to make a new ranking that'll include part 7. But until next time, I'll catch you guys later.